today's video, I'm discussing about a player who is currently on crossroads, a player called Fabio Vieira. I'm sure Arsenal fans have probably forgotten that he exists, even though we follow his progress. He's someone that joined the club in the 2022-2023 season, that campaign where Arsenal waltzed all the way to the top of the Premier League, but fell crashing back after this terrible run of results in April. And Vieira kind of played a very good role in that season, but as the times progressed, he kind of fell back and lost it, and he was sent back on loan to Porto last season. We actually signed him from Porto, but he was sent back to Porto last season. So he actually had the opportunity to come back when the campaign was over, but he joined Porto in the Club World Cup, and he was in the same group with Palmeiras, Inter Miami, and Al Ahly. And unfortunately, Porto were eliminated from the competition after they had an amazing 4-4 draw with Al Ahly. It also actually say this, but sometimes football forces you to face some difficult truths, and we need to ask ourselves that inevitable question: has Fabio Vieira's time run its course before it truly began? So let's track back all the way to 2022, the summer of 2022, where Arsenal splashed out £35 million for a midfielder. This basically came out of nowhere. There were no links, there were no speculations. We just heard Arsenal had signed a brilliant midfielder from Porto for £35 million. And like, okay, who is this guy? What did we do? We went on YouTube, we checked his stats, we checked his videos, and oh my gosh, we're like, whoa, who is this guy? His passing was top-notch. His creativity was out of this world. And he was so slick. He had this technique that, we have come to understand and love in Arsenal. He kind of gave me some Santi Cazorla kind of vibes. So when we signed him, we're like, okay, this is a guy that's going to help us unlock those low blocks. This is a guy that's going to come and help us tread those wicked passes that we need, to add a different dimension to our attack. And the craziest part was that he came off an excellent season in Portugal. In just 27 appearances for Porto that season, Fabio Vieira had 14 assists. Yes, 14 assists. He was one of the most creative players in the team, and the future looked so bright. And obviously, Arsenal already had a main team that they were working with. If I remember clearly, it was Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey who were in the double pivot in central midfield, while Martin Odegaard was in attacking midfield with Martinelli, Xhaka, and Gabriel Jesus in attack. So Fabio Vieira basically had to come in for Odegaard, but he could also play deep, coming in for Xhaka. So there were kind of high hopes from him. And when he scored that goal against Brentford, all the fans were elated, like, yes, our guy has finally come. He's going to be a young guy who has a very bright future, who is going to really take us to the next level in terms of his creativity. The reality hurts, right? Let's fast forward to 2 seasons. The reality has been very underwhelming. Vieira struggled to cement a consistent role in the team, whether it was him adapting to the Premier League's physicality, whether it was him succumbing to so many persistent injuries, or whether it was when we got to the point where he basically lost the trust of his manager, something just didn't click. And think about it, he had fewer than 1,000 Premier League minutes, and when he came onto the pitch, he just looked so lightweight, like as if maybe if breeze just come, he would just blow him away. Sometimes he would drift away into the fringes, you would not just see him, and he struggled badly to impose himself against the opposition teams. We actually brought a player like Vieira to come and help us with those low blocks, but unfortunately, he did not do that. Unfortunately, the reality was a whole lot different. It came so bad that at some point, even when teams were really down and wanted to get results against teams that were holding a low block against us, he had gone so far down in the pecking order that it had little or no faith in him anymore. And that lack of faith was clearly shown because last summer we lost Emil Smith-Rowe to Fulham. Obviously, that also spent some time on the bench and he led to move on for first team football. We also had only Odegaard as the key attacking midfielder, and one would have expected that at least someone like Vieira would stay behind. But Arsenal actually favoured a younger Waneri to be the one to go forward with the team, and Vieira was sent back on loan to Porto. So despite the hype that we had about him, despite the expectation that we had set for him, the reality was a whole lot different. Fabio Vieira did not live up to what was expected of him, and he had to leave the club. So I asked myself this question: why does it hurt? Why does it hurt this much? This is a 22-year-old player that had the ability to actually go very far in his time at Arsenal. It wasn't about a lack of talent. The talent was there. Come on, we saw the little videos, right? When he was in Porto. We even got a glimpse of that ability, that innate ability that was in him when he was in the club. Because in that first season at Arsenal, he played 22 times in the Premier League alone. And of course, Arsenal was in the Europa League, so Vieira actually featured a whole lot more in the Europa League. So the talent was there. His vision, excellent. Vieira knows how to spot a pass. He could look, he basically gave me those old Mesut Ozil vibes, yeah? If he has someone that he wants to pass the ball to, the player got the ball. And his technique was brilliant. He was someone that his close control was very, very lovely. He knew how to manipulate himself out of tight spaces. He had that basic technique that we expected from a player of his caliber. But one thing we have always known all these years is that the Premier League is very relentless. And Arsenal could not afford any more passengers, especially when they were going for a title push. If people are always saying Arteta runs his players to the ground, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is this: Arteta will always play those he trusts. And once you have lost the trust of Mikel Arteta, that's it. And Fabio Vieira actually got to that point where he lost the trust of his manager. And it was very, very painful. It hurts me a lot because I kind of love the idea of Vieira, that creative maestro who was going to come just like Odegaard, even a left footer, to help us create against those teams that keep low blocks. But the reality was that he barely influenced in any of the games he played. He was someone that would just get lost in the shuffle when he comes into the pitch. He was someone that didn't come up with the goods when we needed it. The only game I can think about when he did so well was against Fulham, where we drew 2-2, where he won a penalty, and I think he scored. I can't remember. I know that was the game that Joao Palhinha scored a very late goal against us. And that was basically was an influential match. Prior to that, he had done nada. He had done zilch. And obviously, he got to the point where he had to be loaned out. Think about someone like Sambi Lokonga, who was also hyped as one of the best lads in the Belgian league. But when he came to the club, we gave him a chance when Partey and Yoneni went out for the African Cup of Nations. But for some reason, he struggled. And as we are already aware, he had been out of the club. He went to Luton Town, he went to Sevilla, and it's clear he doesn't have a future in the club. This is very hard for me to talk about, but we have to face the inevitable decision. Fabio Vieira doesn't have a future at Arsenal. Sometimes it's just better for both parties to just move on. At least he signed a 4-year or 5-year contract, and this is the 3rd year in his time in Arsenal. So at least there's a resale value. I don't see us recouping up to the £35 million we paid for him, but I would expect that Andrea Beta would work with the negotiation team to at least cop up something nice. If it's 20 mil, I don't know, man. Unfortunately, he could not meet up with Arsenal tactically. He certainly could not meet up physically. And of course, we knew about the mental part, when you were talking about how he became homesick, how he was struggling to adapt in the Premier League, and stuff like that. So it's better if Vieira goes back to Portugal, maybe Porto. Obviously, he's a legend in Porto right now. He left, came back, they gave him the number 10 jersey. He didn't light up any fireworks like what he did prior to coming to Arsenal. But what was clear is that he's loved in Portugal. Someone like Vieira can also do very well in La Liga because the Spanish league favors those players that have technique, and he'll just come off as someone that can actually play in the Villarreal, the Almerias, the Gironas, and there he can play with confidence. He can play without those rigors of the Premier League. At this point in time, there's no need to cling on to him, on how he could help us. But we have to accept our reality. In conclusion, I would just say that football can be very cruel sometimes. Fabio Vieira is a very talented player, no doubt, but he doesn't fit in the Arsenal project. It's just very clear. But wherever he ends up this summer, hopefully, I wish him the best, because I know that talent is still there. Just unfortunate that it could not be unlocked at Arsenal. It happens. There are times when a player will come into a club and not find his footing, and he will go out there and become better. Case in point, Callum Hudson-Odoi. So great, so much potential for Chelsea. Bayern Munich wanted him, they rejected it. He ended up in Nottingham Forest. It's not as if he let up any fireworks there, but at least, when you are in a club where you're in less pressure to deliver, it's a whole lot different. So the question now is, should Arsenal keep him for one more season or cash him now? I would like your thoughts and comments, on that. And make sure to like this video, subscribe for more Arsenal analysis, and hit the bell so you will not miss out on our next upload. Thank you.